Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books and related works by Stephen King, and movies of those related works that happen to feature cameos by Stephen King. My name is Cole Ross, and today I am joined by Gwen. Hey, Gwen.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's so excited to be here. This is a very interesting movie.
Absolutely. And this movie that we're talking about, in case the title of the episode didn't give it away, is It Chapter 2. I forget, were you on to talk about the first episode or the first chapter?
I was. It was me, you, and Jeremy.
Cool. Yeah. So that's great that we have that continuity here. So the finale of the It saga came out here about a week ago as of when we're recording, I believe. That's when I saw it anyway. And you saw it last night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool.
And yeah, so I was very, to remind you, I was pretty enthusiastic about the first one. I liked it a good deal. And the book is not my, I don't really love the book. I think the book's interesting. Yeah.
I think that we're coming at this not from opposite, but from slightly different directions. I'm a big fan of the book. I think that it is, really good in terms of being a semi-Lovecraftian story that is also about growing up and how shitty small towns are. There's a whole lot going on here. I loved It Chapter 1, but I have some just general, mainly structural and casting problems with It Chapter 2, although there are fantastic moments and fantastic scares here. I did not mean to blindside you with my somewhat ambivalent feelings on the movie.
No, you're fine. Well, so chapter 2, I'd say, if we should probably just say this up front. I think mixed bag is the easiest way I can put this movie.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say, and that's where I come down on it. While still generally liking it, I think that the stuff that makes me come out positive is a good handful of things that really, really buoy it. Yeah. So you said you were listening to the audiobook of It when we were talking in the green room here. That's the Steven Weber one.
I think so. That's the guy who took over Dark Tower near the end, right?
No. Steven Weber is he's the main character, the main actor on Wings. And the
guy who voiced Superman in the 90s?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, no,
I don't think it's him. I'd have to look. I think it's the guy who took over after the first Dark Tower dude passed.
Okay. Yeah. So George Goodall, kind of the old guy.
I think so.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Just the audiobook version of it is a little bit, it is a little bit controversial because of some of the delivery. What is sticking out about the book that is kind of bothering you about it?
So I feel like the book really loves sex as a metaphor, and that is it never feels like a fully formed thought, but it's always something that's on the edge of Stephen King's mind. Yeah. It comes through with The Leper, any chapter focused on Bev, the amount of times that King just offhandedly says, and then they see a pretty girl is off the charts. Yeah. I just don't that's the aspect of the book that I'm kind of glad the movie excised a little, but it's also I understand that it's connected to the growing up part, the puberty part, that sudden change of I am an adult now and things are different. Like I said, there's a lot of interesting stuff about the book. Mm-hmm. And if I'm really picking one thing, and this is just going to be just a philosophical difference between you and me, Cole, and that's perfectly okay. Stephen King just is a bit of a wanderer in terms of writing style, and that's just never going to be something that I 100% jive with.
Gotcha. So in terms of he kind of just, do you think that he meanders when he is within a scene, or is it more of a macro kind of problem?
But I think a little bit of both, because they're if I took a red pen to Stephen King's writing, there's lots of sections where he'll sort of like insert character thought in the middle of action sequence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're like, no, like during the middle of describing an objective action going. And that's not something I think particularly works when he uses it. He's very loose, and I totally get it. He just gets words on the page, and it's just, he's not attempting to achieve a tight product. And that's not his goal. So that's like, I can't like judge him for not delivering something that I am expecting on that level, because that's not what he's attempting to do. So like, I accept him for what he is, and I enjoy his work for what it is. It'll just never be one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I can understand that. Absolutely, as a just a stylistic incompatibility. Yeah, and when he talks about his process too, he talks about never really plotting things out. In fact, actively works against that as an idea, and how he can come together with something as interleaved, let's say, as it is, without let's say like a kind of discipline associated with that, or like a forethought, is a little bit of a miracle. But yeah, you can see where he has left those ragged edges for sure.
And but like, with The Wandering, the one thing that I do think is very interesting about the book over the movie is that I feel like the book 100% sells the idea of Derry being a corrupted place. Like there's something in the water. It is in the water. Like that is something that very much works in the book, that I think the movie could never quite like grasp that metaphor, because the movie just couldn't have that scope. Because here's another issue I have with the movie: when you're talking about it in a macro sense, it just it's long. It's long in a way that it doesn't feel earned or justified.
Right. Specifically part 2, and we can kind of get into it. My plan here isn't to do like a total plot rundown as we usually do. It's a new movie and people can go see it, but more to kind of look at it, broadly about what it accomplishes, and just talk about high level things. As regards it being really long, even aside from being broken apart into 2 different pieces, I think that the second one suffers from some pacing problems that the first one absolutely does not. I would say part 2 is structured and paced like a fucking Avengers movie.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about it the entire time. It's like, I accepted part 1 as a comedy because I thought it was trying to sort of paint a rose-colored lens over their childhood years. Yeah. And part 2 being a comedy, or at least it didn't sell the dark, haunted part as hard as I thought it was trying to, or like part 1 was setting up a part 2 to be.
Yeah. And so like when I call it like a really good Lovecraftian kind of story, it's not just because it deals with a cosmic monster from out of space, but a good deal. There are whole chapters of the book, and we'll talk about this later on when we finally get around to talking about the book itself. The book has long stretches of Mike Hanlon's research, talking about the history of the town, talking about the fire that happened, at the spot, talking about the, the factories that collapsed and things. And you start to see the pattern just of the unmitigated disaster that happens and the apathy that is, swept over the entire town.
What do you think the chances are they're going to do like a Watchmen style, the Black Frigate style animatron? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
animatics
yeah.
On the DVD special.
I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, that's my favorite part of the book is learning about the history, and you get a little bit of that, but they make up out of whole cloth. Mike's, in the movie, Mike is the one who stayed around and did research onto the origins of it. So, big ups to keeping him as a thing that fell from a meteor. Big down to, I found some Native Americans on the edge of town who know about the ritual of Hood.
Okay, so that was new.
Yeah.
I did want to. Could you give me a quick breakdown? Because I'll say the first It story I knew was the old movie, the Tim Curry TV thing. Yeah. So 100% know the back half of it as well as I know the front half. So what are the major differences between the original story and what we got in the movie?
So the major difference, I think, first structurally, is that throughout the book and throughout the the other tellings of it, on that, is that everything is kind of interleaved. So the climax of what is it chapter 1 happens alongside the climax of chapter 2.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I was reading, I've been, when I said I listened to 8 hours of the audiobook, I skipped a good chunk of the beginning because I read like the first 300 pages solidly like 10 years ago, and I remember it very vividly, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So I got through a lot. Like, I'm in neck deep in like part 4 of the book, and I think that's like out of 5. Anyway. Yeah. But the point is, I kept expecting the kids to like go into the house and go confront the monster, but it still hasn't happened, and like we've already done the scenes where the adults are walking through town, and that's the other thing that the book can get across, I think, better than the movies. But the movie does attempt to do this on a different level, is provide this idea of echoes of repeating like concepts. Mm-hmm.
In the book version of it, what happens is there is no like quest to go find tokens. It's not necessarily like, hey, we need to grab these artifacts and bring them and sacrifice them or what have you.
It's about triggering their memories, right?
Yeah, it's about saying
your intuitions and the threads that like it is leading them on.
Yes, just to go, because they had lost so much of themselves by being separate from the town. They needed to spend a day and go basically recover everything. And all of the stories of the past are told as they are going through in the present day, and that is set against kind of the repeats. So you get Richie kind of being terrified and weirded out by the big lumberjack statue, and then in modern day being chased around by it as it starts as it becomes animate, as it goes full on just don't look Simpsons kind of style.
Now, the tokens are a very video game centric kind of conceit, but like for a movie of this pacing, I understand the need to concede that.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I think the tokens. I thought the tokens were fine. What about you?
It was fine. It's kind of a shorthand, and it provides a little bit more motivation than, hey, you just need to go remember, which I think can happen in a book, but in a movie, it would make the middle part of this feel very mushy.
And it also provides a visual symbol for the audiences to latch on to, which is important when you're trying to build it in a visual sense. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Where do we want to go from here? There's so many threads.
Do you want to talk about the casting? About what people on the internet seem to be irritating? Oh, to me, is irritating. They refer to it as glow ups of the Losers Club.
Okay, so I gotta say, the only two people I was actually familiar with before this movie, and I'm actually probably going to just do some quick Googling while we're talking, because I'm sure I recognize some of these actors. Were Bill Hader and Jessica Chastain, who played Beverly.
Yes.
Were you familiar with anyone else?
James McAvoy. Familiar with him from X-Men.
Which one is he? I don't recognize. He looks like a white guy to me.
Yeah. No, he was Bill.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
he was the boring one. Yeah.
If somebody's listening and is super mad. Oh, it's the Mike was. Oh my God.
What?
The man your man could smell like. From the Old Spice commercials.
Is he?
Yes. Isaiah Mustafa.
Okay. Yeah, no, that didn't stick out to me at all. So I didn't recognize anybody else. The one that's super creepy is I guess his name is James Ransone. Yes, James Ransone, who played Eddie. Looks exactly like that fucking kid.
I loved him, actually. He was my favorite of the surprises.
He was so good.
He was in Sinister, which Sinister 1 and 2, and not the main character. I think he played like a bit player. Those are fun movies, by the way, if you've never seen them.
I've not.
You should read the description later, but everyone watch Sinister 1. It's pretty fun. Cool. Anyway, Eddie's grown-up counterpart was my favorite of the new cast that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
I thought he did a fantastic job, and what's interesting about him as an actor is, like, I kind of got like this weird mix of like John Hamm and the guy. Did you ever watch Mad Men?
I've watched the first 2 episodes many times.
Gosh, no, not in the first 2 episodes, unfortunately. There's a character. He's a comedian. I can never remember this actor's name. He's got a very distinct smile and eyebrows. His name's like Jimmy Smits or something.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
Yeah. But like some weird combo of those 2 people. I said, I just recognized I said John Hamm and Have You Ever Seen Mad Men? Like I was going to follow that up with more information about John Hamm. That was a very weird train of thought.
I was totally following you. One might recognize John Hamm from like 30 Rock or something like that. He is a person who is popular in alt comedy stuff.
Yeah, he's not Mad Men anymore. Mad Men is just an ecosystem that he was in at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, your thoughts on Cass?
My thoughts on Cass. So I was the big runaway with this, and this is the consensus that I have seen. Bill Hader, his casting as Richie was tremendous. I thought. I expected big things from him, and I think he did a really good job. Especially, he was the only one who him and Eddie were the only ones who actually carried forward their energy from the first movie. It seems like Jessica Chastain got so close, but she's, I feel like adult Bev, because she's supposed to be broken. It's not good. Yeah, she didn't have an arc is the thing, right?
Yes.
Like Bev in the book has an arc, and this is a little bit helped out by the fact that her ex-husband chases her to Derry, but she has an arc where she eventually gets her confidence back. When she gets around everybody, and specifically, realizes it wasn't Bill who wrote the note, it was Ben, etc. Man, Ben was super flat. I didn't care for Ben's actor or portrayal at all.
So here's something. Okay, I'm gonna have to save this controversial thought for a minute, but yes, they made a mistake. Whoever they cast for Ben, that was very poor. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, you can't just say, here's this kind, sensitive kid, and we're going to make him not fat, and now he's just boring and handsome? That's...
I mean, compared to, they probably had a reason for not going with a John Ritter type. Ben's portrayal in the TV miniseries, that alone made him like an incredible, one of my favorite characters in the story.
Man, I don't know if you're from, what's John Ritter's son's name? Jason Ritter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his au revoir, but Jason Ritter would have made a great Ben, honestly.
Had no idea.
He voices Dipper on Gravity Falls.
Ooh.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, what was the controversial thought that you had to stow?
If I were a movie executive greenlighting this movie, I would have asked the screenwriter to fold 2 of these characters together.
Ooh. Which 2?
Ooh, see, that's probably where I don't know if I have a hard answer, but I feel like, gosh, I don't feel like Ben adds a ton to the story the way it is.
Right.
But I also kind of feel that way about Mike, unfortunately.
Mike is really underutilized in this.
Yes, and it's more the problem of having too many characters, I think, than anything else. They just don't have the time to spend with him or Ben, and so it's like, if those are the 2 that are going to get the short part of the stick anyway, we might as well fold them, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to save this for a final summation, but I think that while we're talking about there being too many characters and this is paced like an Avengers movie, etc., looking at this and taking even my affection for Chapter 1. Into account, I think that I would have much rather all of this be done as like a 10-episode Netflix series with a substantially reduced budget.
I definitely understand that, because there was a sort of shiny gloss to all the effects that was a little unfortunate.
Yeah, like what was the deal? Like they really relied on a particular effect, like making everything look like you had just taken a bunch of like mushrooms or acid. Oh
yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
the one The one that was really driving me up the wall, and I don't even know why, it was near the end when you were in the crater, like just like the shininess on the rock. I know it's supposed to be like obsidian or something, but it just didn't look real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, just in general, like I would have taken the budget hit in order to let the story breathe a little bit more, because you do end up with stuff like the opening of this where they're getting the band back together, and it feels just way too breathless as we're being introduced to these new characters. Once they get to Derry, it's pretty fine for a while, because, even It Chapter 1 had kind of an episodic kind of feel to it. It was going from kind of scare scene to scare scene to scare scene, and that was A-okay to me.
Yeah, so I do still stick by our original summation of the first movie. Like, I still think this is a fun haunted house film in a lot of ways. Like, this is a good film to, like, turn on for Halloween when you got a bunch of friends over.
Yeah.
And maybe fast forward through the lesser bits. I don't know.
Yeah. To make your own supercut of it. Just a single 5-hour long movie. Yeah. Another thing that I feel like is a little bit wasted in this, and speaking just a little bit to the too many characters, Henry Bowers is such an important part of the books, and he was a pretty big deal in the first in the first movie.
Should have been used a different way entirely.
Yep.
I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. I like how, I like the fact that Richie is able to save Eddie, especially with that aspect of the plot that they put in. And I don't know how much I have to say about that aspect of the plot. I thought it was appropriate, specifically revealing that Richie is gay, and that is the secret he had been hiding, from lots of people. So I'm fine with that, and it's good that Henry was able to help them underline that to a certain extent. But yeah, there was not enough Henry, especially as compared to how well he's used in the books.
Definitely gonna have to put a pin in the gay thing, because that's a thing we got to talk about. Yes. But the Henry specifically, it's more just how quick he shows up for one scene in Derry.
Yep.
One scene that lasts 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is them cutting away what's Bill's wife's name? Aiden, something like that.
Yeah.
Cutting her storyline out, cutting Bev's husband out, and folding it all into his, like, this being the one physical manifestation of it trying to go after them. Mm-hmm. And it's one scene where Richie stabs him in the head with a fucking fire poker, and that's it.
That's all.
And I understand on a functional level that's supposed to be the scene of Richie coming back and being like, I'm in, because Richie's the one who's battling the big secret of so he's got that extra weight, which is why he keeps trying to walk away. And but that was such a poor use of the tool they had.
Yeah. So it's a real waste, and who knows how much room there would have been for them to highlight the fact that Henry was just a physical piece that was put on the board. But as it stands, it doesn't really make any sense why he was brought there if it wasn't explained as that. Because I mean, to just lay things out in the book, Pennywise is a little bit insecure about his ability to affect and harm the adults. So he starts, attracting all of these, independent physical people that he has brought to the edge, in order to stop everybody. And, here he attacks Eddie. In the book, he attacks Mike, which makes way more sense given the fact that Henry is a fucking racist who blames all of his misfortune on Mike and his family.
Yeah, just that part's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
I liked whoever that actor was, even though he had very little to do, but I thought he carried it.
He did a very good job. I liked the line, "You need to cut off your mullet. It's not 30 years ago," or something like that. Yeah. As we mentioned saving the Richie being gay subplot for later. I don't know that I have an awful lot to add to it.
Okay, then here are my quick thoughts on it. I do like that it further drives that Derry has haunted them for all their lives, because like that in the book, obviously the anti-queer sentiment has always been part of the Derry subculture, even in the book years.
Yeah.
So I do like that it sort of gives them a stronger connection to that very specific hatred that they grew up around and just sort of had to absorb. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just a hair too subtle, because it took me a minute after seeing all the information for me to click the dots.
Okay.
Am I stupid?
I don't think so. Like it. I can't say. I don't think you're stupid. I respect your intelligence, Gwen. No. They do treat it very subtly, and there could be a benefit of the doubt, and it's not strictly revealed until the end when we see him carving the name on or recarving the name on the bridge.
I think possibly it also had a little bit to do where I kept seeing E. I saw R plus E, and I was like, well, I remember R is Richie, but I forget who E is already.
Oh, yeah, you forgot Eddie's name. Yeah. Yeah.
Just too many characters. And, like, this is, like, seriously, it's just that the fact that there are so many people on screen, and, like, this is my problem in the book, too. Like, I was struggling to try to remind my wife what Stanley's role was in the first movie.
Oh, right.
And like I can think of it now that he was the logical one, the one that was like, so, I have everything. I do have a question about Stanley.
Okay.
Was his note in the book? Was it part of some gambit the entire time, or is that a movie invention?
I believe it's a movie invention. I think that he did write a note that made its way to them, but the idea is that they have to face the Losers Club has to face it severely diminished. So Mike is taken off the board by Henry, and Stanley is he killed himself. And so they go with 5 out of the 7, I believe, is what it ultimately is. It is not like a gambit where he says, we would have to face him, so I killed myself so I wouldn't chicken out, or I chickened out now so I wouldn't chicken out later.
Oh my God, that's because when that happened, I was like, I don't remember this. This seems very unnecessary.
Yeah, it's a way to give him a little bit more of a little bit more of a role in the story, that like, oh, he succeeded because they succeeded because of his sacrifice. It's a pretty light way to treat suicide, I think, actually.
Well, let's go back to this thing is cut like an Avengers movie, because every triumph is accompanied by a swelling score of strings.
Yeah.
And it is overwhelming and strange. It is not it feels very off for the tone visually of what we're dealing with a lot of the time. Yeah.
No, it just,
oops.
Yeah, it like that letter that he wrote, it came across like the letter that not Judd Hirsch, whatever his name is, Judd Nelson writes at the end of the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Like you will see us. you will see us for what we are, not what you consider us to be. Blah blah blah.
Losers forever.
Yeah, just picturing them, getting ready to jump into the reservoir and throwing their arms up in triumph. Like, yeah, it was a little bit tonally all over the place. I really liked Stanley's role in the first book as a little bit of asymmetry between the first book, as a little bit of asymmetry between the past and the present, but also, again, a very Lovecraftian idea of the person who is too rational and cannot square any of what's happening. And because of that mismatch, he cannot continue to face it. And here they just wipe that away with Richie saying he was too weak.
So have we done enough legwork to just sort of go down through some scenes at this point?
I think we can. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about Mike and the Native Americans. Where did that, okay. Chud. Is that a Stephen King idea?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with 2019 Hell World.
Or cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so written out, there should be an umlaut over the U. Yeah, so chewed, or if you are taking this as, you know, like an Eastern language, or something from the Middle East, it'd be the ritual chud. And so the ritual of chud just sounds really dumb and bad to me.
Oh yeah, no, it sounded like they said ritual of chode at some point. It was bad. It was a very strange choice.
Yeah, no. In the book, it's, he learns about it as a result of reading like Tibetan scrolls and things like that. The idea being, the ritual of food would be it pictured a human keeping a demon locked down in place by biting on its tongue.
Okay, so but so there already was a weird mystic Eastern element to the original.
Yeah, the idea being that Pennywise is not necessarily unique, that there were others of these that indeed fell, and canonically in the Dark Tower, Crimson King is of a similar ilk. We're going to meet another character in book 7 that is basically the same species as Pennywise. Pennywise is. And it's strongly implied in 11/22/63 that one of these is living under Dallas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So deadlights is that the actual form of the creatures?
Yes.
That's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, the deadlights are not just a spell that they cast, or in the movie here it is portrayed as a thing that lives inside his head. It's actually something that lives outside the universe. And what we see here, the Pennywise that we get is a projection into our universe, kind of carried on the residue of the meteor. So in the ritual of Chud, the penalty of taking of failing is that you are sucked out of the universe and thrown into the deadlights. Your mind and your soul and your body is just kind of left there, as an empty husk. Yeah.
I liked almost all the effects of the deadlights, except that they were just like a hair too much like a PS4 pause menu.
That's a really good way to put it.
It's like, they were very pretty to look at, and that didn't seem right. They should have been, I feel like, menacing and like bright in a way that seemed incomprehensible, which they were partially, but movie effects. Mm-hmm. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially, it looks even more PS4 menu-y after they succeed in the ritual to a certain extent, and they turn 100%. Blue. Yeah. But started
cycling through the colors.
So this is an incredibly small quibble, but Mike's magic leather ritual box is a dumb prop, and I do not care for it one bit.
It was pretty bad, but it was also very comical to watch a giant balloon start squeezing out of it.
True. So, yeah,
I'll give them that.
I'll agree with that.
I think they picked that shape specifically for the cookie jar type top,
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. That is a very good, especially how gigantic that balloon gets. Cutting a little bit before the Native American stuff, I gotta say one of my favorite scenes is in the Chinese restaurant, where they start putting together the message, like how each fortune cookie has a single word, and that's how they find out about Stanley's death.
Yes, and I know that's an invention of the movie, because in the book they just bite into the fortune cookies and get a bunch of guts in their mouth.
Yes,
which is a fun scene in the book. But anyway, that was a very cute scene. Though
it stressed me out, them all yelling over each other like the characters from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like just how stressed all of them were. There's a lot going on there that's really good.
Yeah, it's like the worst game of Wheel of Fortune ever. And that was a very good scene. Then Bill Hader's confrontation with the kid, who is an extension of the skateboard kid from the book. Mm-hmm. Does the kid die in the book? I haven't gotten that far.
I forget.
But either way, so in the movie, though, I'm just going to link some scenes together. This kid's going to end up being used as bait by Pennywise in a hall of mirrors to get Bill, to get some fear juice out of Bill.
Yes. To marinate Bill just a little bit more. I was too busy laughing at the Hall of Mirrors. I was picturing the end of that Chuck Norris movie where he fights he fights somebody, or it was like a Jet Li movie or something like that, where he fought somebody in a Hall of Mirrors.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I would need to look up and see exactly what I'm talking about. I was too busy thinking about that. Like, that scene was good. As far as like the random kid death scenes go, I was way more into the little girl under the bleachers.
Oh, the bleacher scene was the best random death of the movie. I just love those scenes where you get to see, his name's Bill Skarsgård, right?
I believe Bill, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård. Too many Bills. Bill Skarsgård getting to actually like let loose and actually act instead of just be a monster man is it's so good, because like it really so the big break sequence the big great sequence in that is there's a point where he tells the little girl to count to 3 to blow out the candle, right? Mm-hmm. And that he pauses between 2 and 3, and he does his dead eye, I'm going to drool face. And that's such a wonderful sequence.
And then just to, like instantly, it has to be over the course of just a handful of frames when he chomps her head off. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Pretty good. Yeah, I liked that quite a bit. Also because it underlined how ridiculous it is that a clown would be at all alluring in the modern day, like putting that scene in where the idea is like, oh, nobody wants to come near me because I'm a clown and people make fun of the way I look. Like, well, yes. yeah, but like that makes more sense in a story that is set in the 80s and the teens, as opposed to a story that is set in the 50s and the 80s, where it's plausible that a clown would at all be a draw for a kid.
I like the idea that in a previous incarnation, he he had that Bob Gray persona and existed as that outside of Pennywise at times. Mm-hmm. That's that the 1800s cycle of it probably was pretty fucked.
Yeah, specifically. Well, we can talk about that too, because that links to one of my other favorite scenes in the movie is Beverly's return to her old house.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where we get the glimpse. We get the glimpse at the Bob Gray persona, both in the photo and in real life as part of the scare. It was genius for them to use this as the trailer, I think, and it worked. It worked very well in the movie itself. But just like the visual of that big lanky grandma monster coming at Beverly with her floppy tits out.
It reminds me very much of my favorite scare from It Follows, if you know the one I'm talking about. Yep. But the great part about it, that scene specifically to me, is you can see the kitchen behind Beverly. It's framed in such a way that you can see it over her shoulder. And by the kitchen, I mean the doorway to the kitchen, which is completely darkened, of course, as any room with Pennywise is. Right. And you just see the old lady just like poke her head out, like just checking in. And then she like does this weird scuttling off motion. It's so good. Yeah. Whoever they got to, either that actress or the direction that they gave her to make her look as unnatural as possible. It just, chef fingers kiss emoji. Yeah. And like that scene, I read that scene in the book, and that's probably the best, I think, scene translation from book to movie that for my money, because what was great about that scene in the book is the slow realization that like there's something wrong with this woman I'm being forced to talk to, and the way they get that across in the movie, where she just shoots her down with "Don't be so polite," that is a good like needle drop. Yeah. I love it. I love how she just is kind of like frozen in place and can't bring herself to leave. Very good. So to connect that to the Bob Gray thought, as she's trying to escape from floppy tit grandma, she sees a door and she opens it to, well, she sees pictures first of all, and the lady claims to be a descendant of Bob Gray. Like that's her not first clue, but like definitive proof that, oh no, I'm in a very bad place right now.
Yeah.
So as she's running away, she opens a door and she sees Pennywise in his Bob Gray persona, angrily putting on his makeup.
I loved it.
That when he puts his fingers into his skin to draw out the makeup.
Yep.
I love that kind of thing. That is so
good design. And he never breaks eye contact with her, but his eyes are kind of wandering and he's got the drool going on. There's just something about the vacant drool. I wonder when he records the scenes where his eyes wander, if he actually has somebody there or if he's like just sort of staring off. I bet he doesn't have anybody there. I don't have the ability to do that. It seems like it would be harder if there was something that was drawing the focus of your eyes.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Bill Skarsgård, good job.
Yeah. Big thumbs up. Do you have another scene you want to talk about?
So let's see. I thought Richie's scene with the lumberjack was fantastic. Was that actually a Street Fighter game?
Yes. So this is the thing that almost made me get up and walk out of the movie. So first off, they did use, I believe, the original Street Fighter, which would have been appropriate for 1989.
Oh, you mean the one that was translated as like Fight Street?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so Street Fighter 1 had Ken and Ryu. However, the control array was not correct. They had it was the joystick and the 3 buttons. I think there were fewer in the original Street Fighter. It was the one that had like the pads.
Cabinet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the cabinet was 2, but the game was wrong. Got it.
Yes.
I was so curious, because I was like, this doesn't seem so wrong to be like inaccurate, but something's wrong here.
The thing that bugged me is that so they made sure to at least make the game the correct era. Street Fighter coming out in 91, I believe, the movie taking place in 89. But in a later scene, Richie, like that still takes place in the 80s. Richie runs past a Mortal Kombat cabinet. And
ruined.
You got no. I'm going to ask for a refund because of this. Not really. it was amusing to me to, I feel superior by pointing out mistakes that professionals make.
It's such a curse to know as much about video games because you're just going to watch it. Like, well, what's that? There's some dumb network TV show that used Prince of Persia 2008 as like a visual
for hacking.
Yeah, and it was just like they were talking about some online coding bullshit, and it's like, it's Prince of Persia. He's pressing a QTE. What are you talking about?
It was like there were some government secrets that somebody encoded into the video game, and you had to play to the end to get them. It was so dumb. Oh, yeah. Okay,
so but his sequence specifically when he sat down and got scared by the Paul Bunyan statue. Mm-hmm. When the texture on the material of Paul Bunyan as it opened its mouth and like broke in front of him, I was so in love with the detail work.
Just like that crazy, like almost plastic, shredding and webbing that happens. Like, as like what's important is the big maw full of the teeth. Everything else just turns into this dead leather almost. Yeah, big thumbs up to that. Yeah. A non-horror scene that I greatly enjoyed. I thought that Stephen King's cameo was fantastic.
Oh, that's who that was. I wondered why everyone in the audience went, ooh.
So, the fact that he put on that incredibly thick down north accent, and he dissed Bill Denbrough for having bad endings to his stories, and the fact that was a running gag throughout all of it. Much.
Yeah. We got to talk about this for a second, because one thing about the book that specifically I noticed when I was reading was, Bill Denbrough was always meant to sort of represent Stephen King in a way, right?
Bill Denbrough is based off of Peter Straub. Which
is a Stephen King friend, right?
Yeah. So he co-wrote The Talisman and Black House with.
Yes.
But it's still a main protagonist who is a writer, so there's going to be some Stephen King in there.
Yeah, so the part where he's in his English class, this is not in the movie, just in the book, where he's in his English class and the professor is going on and on about socio-political readings, and Bill just absolutely rejects that and is like, all stories are just stories.
Yeah.
And man, I really got to admire Stephen King's brutal and blunt relationship with being a writer sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like it doesn't feel like there's any filter to it, and he's very upfront about his emotions about what it means to be a writer, because like, man, the bits where it's like, okay, there's also this is actually a bit with Richie in the book, but there's a bit where he talks about how you have to take the crazy person inside of you and chain him up, and that's how you get things done. Yeah. And it's like, man, Stephen King, that's not a normal work ethic, but okay.
It's like, okay, you've obviously thought of this. You're putting your own, you're putting a lot of yourself in here, and that is good and relatable, even if it is completely unhealthy.
Yes, 100%.
But yeah, I was the only person in the theater laughing out loud, extremely out loud, at the gag about the bad endings.
Yeah, I was I was the entire time I was just thinking so hard about it, because it's one of those things where I'm always it's very self-aware, and at the same time it's like, but do you accept the criticism or no? But well, now that I know it's Stephen King, it's like I just don't know. He doesn't care about endings. I accept that. He doesn't care. I care. So the fact that I care is not on him.
Yeah. But I mean, that's pretty much where he comes down on it too, publicly.
Which is a fascinating stance. And like, you read it and it's like, it's definitely a journey kind of book. It's not a destination, because like, what's the destination? Like literally my least favorite bits of this entire movie are the ending, like the literal ending. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's really not about that part.
Yeah.
It really, really isn't.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is the song Morning Angel by Juice Newton funny?
What happened there? I don't understand.
I don't know.
That was the third vomit shot of the movie.
Yep.
And so my thought is, maybe it was Eddie it broke Eddie so much that he had to like think of something that wouldn't make him break in the moment. But that's it. That's the only thing I got.
Yeah. I've got no idea. I don't know. I didn't know why it was funny when they used it for the opening of Deadpool. I don't know why they used that little snippet here. Like I laughed because it's out of nowhere, but
oh yeah, that gag. It's it definitely feels like the wrong decision in the end, but like it caught me off guard when it happened.
Oh, give me another scene.
Boy, what else was I really like. Can we talk about the confrontation with it at the end at this point?
Yeah,
that would be fine, right? All right, so that like the actual okay, well actually there's a big problem with this scene, and I say problem. How did you feel about Mike lying to them?
It felt unnecessary.
It didn't feel motivated. And it was specifically at the 11th hour. It was so close to Endgame this was a sequence that had multiple false starts where it's like, let's try this. Oh no, let's try this. Oh no. And I get that you have to do a few of those, but that one in particular just felt like nothing about Mike's past would suggest that he would be fundamentally broken in this way, you know? Yeah. Like if it was built more into the narrative of like this was his brokenness of lying and misleading, like something like that. I don't know. It just didn't feel right.
They lay no track with Mike. You know, he is there to bring everybody together and give them, the blueprint for what they need. It's not even treated really as unusual. The fact that he lives in the attic of the library and, has a crazy layer of, maps all with string and yarn, string and pins and stuff like that. Like it's not really remarked upon.
It's skipped entirely that he's the only one who's not successful.
Right.
Though, to be fair, the only indication that Beverly's successful is her closet full of clothes.
Yes.
In the movie?
And a couple of offhand comments, like she's talking with Bill and he says, "Oh, so you filled half my wife's wardrobe."
Oh, I did miss that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not care for the fact that they had Mike lie to them. And lie very stupidly by scratching out one of the sides of the dumb magic leather box.
So, like, again, thinking movie executive style, say you folded Ben and Mike into one character. Then you could make his insecurity about losing Beverly part of that reason why he doesn't want to let them know that there's a fail state. Like, you could make that work in a better way.
Yeah. Or you could make it part of his... part of asking for the buy-in to say like, hey, we're not coming back from this,
Yeah. Which is like, it feels like that's okay. So that's sold much better in the book, that we're not coming back. And, I think at least. And another thing that I think is sold much better in the book that I did want to get across is I don't think the movies do a good job of selling Pennywise as it.
Yeah.
They sell it as Pennywise.
Yep. No, Pennywise is just one of the forms, and it's a huge reveal in the original miniseries. For as much as it is, laughed at for being bad special effects, and it is, it's a huge reveal that it is actually this gigantic cosmic spider who lives beneath the city, not just in the sewers, but like in the ancient warrens beneath, the catacombs beneath the so and so, right? Like that is such a big deal, and when it's revealed that the spider isn't even its actual form. Yeah, the movie, it takes all of that and turns into, okay, Pennywise is just, stomping around and he has the lower half of a spider's body like he's Quillag from Dark Souls.
I did love the look of that.
It was
in the new movie.
It was goofy and not scary and not in necessarily the best way. I'm down for something that is trying to be scary but ending up as goofy, but it just didn't land for me. And that also cuts out one of the bigger horrors of this, which is when they get into Pennywise, when they get into its lair and see all the eggs. They're like, oh shit, it's a mama and it's multiplying.
Ooh, yeah, that's not there.
It's not there at all. And just the instinctual revulsion that they feel at this, and the fact that all of them go into a frenzy trying to break the eggs. That all of that is gone and not really replaced with anything interesting. Again, making it much less of a cosmic story or a story about kind of an extending elemental corruption, right?
Yeah, very much. There are definitely there are large sequences. I guess I can't say large sequences, but there's definitely a few minutes of just hard lulls that do nothing.
Yeah. And I think that the final encounter kind of taking place with all of them being sent to their own personal black bug rooms or whatever, that was a questionable decision that was saved by Richie and Eddie being sent to the three doors, the not scary at all, scary and very scary.
So that is the one time where I thought that the movie did a very smart thematic choice of trying to recreate the echoes. Specifically, it took the one, because that when we talked about the first movie, we were both very enthusiastic about that original scene.
It was great.
And so it makes sense, of course, that I think the movie should echo its best scene in the second movie, and of course try something very different, or not very different, but it's a logical extension of the joke.
Yeah. Where we went through this before, we made the wrong decision before. Let's do let's try and outsmart this. And no, you can't, because it's a trap, you dummies.
And I can't believe how long they stayed talking to that dog behind the not scary at all door. It's come on, you've learned this surely by this point, guys.
But the fact that the not scary at all door just matched what Richie joked about, and they still fell for it. There's no way we can kill this dog, can we?
the best part about that scene was when they walked away. I don't remember who said which line, but one of them said, "Next time we're just choosing the scary door," and then they just replied, "Next time."
Oh man, that could have been an ad lib. Those two actors had really good patter.
It was a good little bit.
Yeah, but like I didn't understand why Ben was being buried alive. That didn't make an awful lot of sense. Beverly,
that was shoehorned. That whole him in the gosh, yeah, that felt more like a Stanley thing than a Ben thing. It didn't really add.
No.
Ben was muddled. The entire thing was muddled, and he didn't have he barely had a thing to do in that movie. He existed to be the true love of Beverly's life that she didn't realize was there, and that's it.
Yeah, that's all. And then, of course, what was it? It was the revelation that Bill was faking sick that morning, so he wouldn't have to play in the rain. That was why he felt guilty about it. I don't believe that is represented in the book. That's fine. Like him conquering Georgie's death and getting closure over it and stopping to blame himself. I'm good. I'm good with that being the thing that breaks him through.
Yeah, that didn't bother me at all. I thought Bill was fine. I'd have no issue with Bill, Richie, and Eddie. I think all have relatively good and complete arcs.
Yeah.
And then the problems are with the other ones. Well, not so Stanley so much. Stanley kind of gets a pass, except for his ending. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, do you have anything else you want to say about the final confrontation before we talk about how it ends?
The final confrontation. I'm trying to sequence. It's a whole. Gosh, that final confrontation is a good chunk of the ending. Long. Yeah. Oh, so what is the time count on this movie? I was surprised we got out at 2 a.m.
I think it's like 2.5 hours long, something like that. Yeah, let me look here. 169 minutes, so damn near 3 hours.
Jesus Christ! No wonder. Okay, so yeah, the ending sequence. I think we covered most of my thoughts. Like the special effects were kind of all over the place. Clearly the book has a better. The fact that they chose to split this into two movies means that fundamentally this climax just had to be just so radically different. But losing the eggs is a bummer. Like the eggs were the eggs. Here's a question: were the eggs in response to being weakened the first time?
No, it had just been laying them. It's not laid out. It's not laid out why it was laying the eggs.
Okay, so the eggs theoretically were there in the first encounter.
Right.
Oh, man, that's so cool. That's so much cooler. I like that so much more.
Well, and so, just again, doing the movie book comparison, what the trick that they do by locking it into a form they can kill, that's from that's from kind of the climax of the kids section where they trap the werewolf in Neibolt Street. Like, okay, it's going to change form to whatever we're afraid of, so everybody be afraid of werewolves right now. So the silver slug can hurt it. They took that here. The conclusion of the book, it has Bill and then Eddie, I think, basically being flung out into the cosmos and arguing the deadlights into not existing, specifically with Bill getting over his stutter by reciting his by finally being able to recite the tongue twister that had from his therapy that had always messed him up, the
post of the ghost or whatever.
With bravest risk and dare with biggest risk and bravest boast, he slams his fists against the post and still insists he sees the ghosts. Something like that. And it is only the act of overcoming this lifelong, childhood limitation of his that eventually, and using the power of that, of growing up and surmounting as a mantra, that he is able to banish Pennywise, banish it back to the deadlights.
Yeah, I don't think I have
kind of impossible to film.
Yeah, that is. They definitely what options did they really have? That's definitely he probably sat with his screenwriter in a room for an afternoon, and it's what the hell do we do with this?
Yeah.
You ever seen? Do you know Party Down?
Yeah.
And there's that scene where they the Roman's talking to the guy, the sci-fi writer, and he has this fucking outlandish, unfilmable, like non-body sci-fi creature, and they just go through so many loopholes. That's what I got to imagine happened.
Yeah. I don't blame them for trying to for changing it in order to be more filmable. Although it is ridiculous that in the original television miniseries they did approximate that. Yeah, ridiculous.
I might just go back to watch the ending of the TV series because I'm just curious how they did it now. I completely forgot because like what stood out to me about the TV series was definitely more, the Tim Curry centric scenes.
Yes, it is definitely worth going and looking at, specifically for its made-for-TV budget special effects.
They did a good job with what they had,
Oh, 100%.
I don't envy anybody ever making TV movies.
No, I do not mean that to like in denigration. It's more about the era as well. That was a huge event and it actually did have a bunch of money on it. But most of it was spent on the cast, I believe. Yeah. That's pretty much all I've got,
So the real ending then? Like the actual ending, the Lord of the Rings style ending?
Yeah, where it's 15 different false ones. Yeah, them jumping into the reservoir and all that. Yeah.
So yeah, let's say they got to walk through the town of Derry where no one is to show you that they've conquered the boss. Oh, and it was a what's the TV tropes term? Structure.
He was a load-bearing boss.
There we go. He was a load-bearing boss, and the sewers of Derry collapse when he's defeated. How is the town not just completely sunken into the ground at this point?
That's them approximating something from the book where it was Pennywise's presence that basically kept the weather from tearing the town apart. They talk about how the barrens would always flood and the fact that like all of these sewers had to be constantly revised because basically Derry should by all rights be underwater. Without Pennywise there, this huge storm comes in and most of the town is destroyed, and that is dealt with in other books that take place in Derry after this. So Insomniac and Dreamcatcher. Just how different the town is after the Great Flood of '86.
Interesting. And see, that's another thing. Again, the book gets a little bit better at than the movie. It's where it can sell it as not, being perhaps Derry itself rather than just an aspect of Derry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just the fact that Derry cannot exist without it. And that everything there in some ways exists to serve it, as kind of outlined by the fact that like Pennywise can just decide what adults see, and that this is just a big buffet that he can come back to every 27 years.
Well, Cole, here's what I bet. If in 10 years the Netflix streaming revolution is still happening, they're going to have Stephen King in an ultra exclusive deal contract, and he's going to give them the rights to do an It miniseries that's a 10-hour, 10-part long, just like you've always hoped. Yeah.
I don't know about always hoped. It just seemed like it would have been a better fit. Yeah, it's hard to be too terribly disappointed. I just thought like, okay, do you break this into 3 movies? Is that tenable? Probably not.
No, I can't. I don't even see how that would happen. Like movies seems like the wrong format. It's a big story. It's a big story.
Yeah, so that's why
maybe
good
4 movies, but like 4 movies would just basically be 2 4-hour episodes. So
yeah,
or you know what I mean, 4 2-hour episodes.
Yeah, and that's why I get nervous about them talking about, okay, we're going to remake The Stand, and it's like, all right, you're going to do that in what, 3 movies, 5 movies? What are you doing? When the Dark Tower movies were more of a going concern, I was really heartened by the idea that they had this mixed movie and television series kind of story going along, or plan going along. It seemed like the better idea for books that are as big and sweeping as this.
Man, how I didn't want to make an MCU joke, but I did. During the ending sequence, I was 100% thinking of every variation of the Man in Black shows up and is like, the turtle needs you.
Oh, they cut the turtle out of this entirely.
It's completely gone.
Yeah, like so in the first movie, the basically there's like the can of turtle wax that Georgie goes to get, and in this one there is a prominent stuffed turtle sitting on a teacher's desk. So the idea that the turtle is watching over them, but they cut out that connection, like the idea that this turtle, which is in the greater series, said to be Machirin, one of the guardians of the beam, the actual ones, not the cyborg ones, standing and basically talking to Bill.
If someone's watching this, like, I just watched it. What are you talking about, cyborg guardians of the beam?
Yeah.
Man, you guys got to get to Deep Dark Tower. You're missing out.
But the turtle, like, he's talking about like, hey, I'm not God. There is another, and that other is confirmed to be Gan, to be the greater force of the white that the Crimson King is standing against. So like anything that would connect the movie version of it to the greater Dark Tower mythos is completely severed.
Yeah, I'm glad you saw the turtles, because I had to imagine they put something like that in there, because that's like I got to imagine that's part of Stephen King's contract, is like, connect this to my multiverse. Please.
At the very least, it's fine if it's unintrusive. Some dork out there is going to notice it, and it'll be good. So yeah,
like that's additive. That's just the fact that it's there is additive. Mm-hmm. Especially if you know the book, and like I totally get why that's a part of, because like that's a harder sell to tell people, like, oh, also there's a giant turtle god, and like its arch enemy is this clown. Well, it's not, you know what I mean? One of its enemies is this clown monster from outer space. Just saying.
So I think a big ask is probably the right way to phrase that. It's it is incredibly dorky on its face, and when it's arrived at in the book, it is a little bit dorky, but at least they have justified it enough.
Okay, so they jump off the cliff into the ravine below and have a nice splish splash in the water after they walk through downtown and no one's there. Mm-hmm. Ben and Bev do a gross underwater kiss.
Yeah, they're down there for a while.
I'm sure you were thinking about how nasty that water is.
Yeah, their mouths are pretty much open. I was definitely I was the Stanley in that situation.
And like, no matter how much they think they were just in the sewer, you were just in the sewer.
Yep. Yeah, but then they talk and they reminisce, and then they get the letters and stuff like that.
Everyone does a big hug centered around Bill Hader. It's very cute.
Yeah.
And Bill Hader has the hair that has Robin Williams level of hair. Holy shit!
Dude is carpeted. Yeah, no, this specifically has made me want to go watch Barry. I've been meaning to see that for a while. That's Bill Hader's series on HBO, right? Where he's the hitman. Yeah,
you will like it. It is very good and very smart.
I will take your recommendation then. I still have HBO now from when I watched Chernobyl, so I can fire that up.
Yes, everyone. Yes, if you like Bill Hader, for everyone here, if you like Bill Hader in It Chapter 2, Barry is another fantastic display of his acting prowess.
Fantastic. I don't know that I have any other thoughts.
Trying to think anything else about that ending. It just keeps going for a bit. The scene between him and Mike reading Stanley's letter is literally like 5 minutes long. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And the actor who played Stanley gets one extra camera shot where he looks right into the camera like, I knew this was going to happen all along. When I was talking about Eddie being the one who looked most like his younger form, they were safe to just cast a fucking doppelganger. I wouldn't be surprised if the person that they got to play Stanley was like that kid's dad. I was very impressed with how much old Stanley looked like young Stanley. Yeah. It was surprising.
It's like Beverly said at the beginning, like, oh, it's you but taller.
I think, yes, I can safely say I have gotten it out of my system.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a lot of fun talking about this with you. And I'm looking forward to having you back on to talk about the book.
Oh, yes. I'm very excited about that. So, yeah, thank you so much, Cole. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
Right now, the best place is just join the Duckfeed community Slack. I'm on there a bunch, trying to get my online presence up again, but I don't have any creative projects off the ground yet, but cool. Maybe in the future.
Yeah. Well, we love having you there. You add a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So for me, the usual stuff, other shows here on Duckfeed.tv. You can watch my horror game streams on the weekends, at twitch.tv/Duckfeed.tv. It makes no sense to talk about what I'm streaming tonight because this episode will not come out for a few days. So just watch for those. Otherwise, though, come back.
Well, what if I want to know, Cole?
Tonight I am streaming Silent Hill Origins, or beginning the stream of Silent Hill. I remember disliking that game, and I want to figure out why.
Well, I'll watch tonight, and everyone else can watch on YouTube when it comes up.
Yeah. But the thing I want you to do most is come back next time. We are here continuing with the this season of the show. I think we're going to hit some of the short stories that undergird book 7 here. Either Low Med and Yellow Coats or Everything's Eventual. Still figuring it out. But looking forward to seeing you next time. And until then, long days and pleasant nights.